Welcome to Stitchery Stories, where textile artists share their life in fabric and thread, inspiration, techniques, disasters and delights. And I'm Susan Reeks, enthusiastic embroiderer and textile art dabbler who also loves podcasting. So take a break and enjoy our light-hearted chat, and please share with your friends so they can enjoy it too. Hello and welcome today to our lovely guest, Hayley Mills-Styles. Hi Hayley.
Hi Sue.
It's lovely to speak to you today, Hayley. Now, this is the first podcast recording I've done for quite a few months actually, because I had a rather longer than expected summer break, but we're back on it now. I've got quite a few nice guests lined up, and Hayley's the first of the next batch. So let's call it season 2, shall we, of Stitchery Stories. So I have a bit of a bio here for Hayley. And Hayley, before I forget, this is going to be terrible today. I'll keep forgetting what I'm doing. Hayley is a thread artist, is how she describes herself. So for as long as I can remember, I have been working with fabric and thread. These skills were passed down by my paternal grandmother, who didn't always appreciate my efforts, especially when I deconstructed my clothes and soft furnishings to see how they were made. Yes, I can see that. Things have changed since those early days, but I still love to experiment with textiles. I use them to tell stories about my life, produce commission pieces for other artists, and teach people the skills that I learned as a child. My work combines traditional techniques with digital embroidery and sculptural elements, transforming them into textile drawings and objects. So there we are. That's Hayley in a very small nutshell. So again, lovely to see you. And the best place, I think, to find Hayley is your website, Hayley, yes?
Yeah, that's right. So just through my website, which is hayleyMillsstyles.com.
Yeah, and I also know, because I'm on Instagram, Hayley's on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And you've conveniently called yourself the same everywhere. Well done, H. Mills-Styles. Makes it a lot easier for us.
It does make it a lot easier, yeah. And I think having the quite sort of long name, yeah. I don't think there are many people with my name in the UK, so that's worked out quite well for me.
Fantastic. And of course, all of those links will be on Hayley's episode on stitcherystories.com, and all her links will be on there, plus some images of her art as well for you to look at. And of course, go and follow us on Instagram, because we'll be sharing stuff on there too. Right, so that's enough waffle from me about all of that. So really, Hayley, before we get started with your Stitchery story today, would you like to share with us what you're working on and what has got you excited?
So, I can't even remember when I started working on my collection of work, Archive and Other Stories. So that is a full exhibition in Whitby Museum. And if you've never visited Whitby Museum, it's a fantastic place. They have everything in there from natural history. They have a costume gallery upstairs. They've got sort of fossils and geology. And it's just a museum sort of things around sort of Whitby. And I've been going there since I was a kid. And I just sort of thought to myself, I really, really want to do an exhibition inspired by that. So, yeah, I am just putting the finishing touches together for that. So it's all the sort of, not necessarily the textile bits, but things like my labels and interpretation panels, and all my work, 32 pieces of it, are currently living in the basement of the museum in a freezer, mummified and bubble wrap. For conservation purposes. Anyone who's worked with museums and galleries will know there's a lot of sort of conservation that goes into things. So yeah, it's all been frozen to check that I haven't taken any moths into the museum, because I work with a lot of vintage textiles. That's been sort of the real big focus of my life for certainly most of this year, and I was doing all my research towards the tail end of 2017, so it's not a bad life, is it, when you get to spend a lot of time by the seaside?
I know, it's lovely, isn't it? And that starts on Saturday the 15th of September, that's right, isn't it, Hayley?
Yeah, it does, yeah. It launches on Saturday the 15th of September. My holiday this year is actually the week before that, installing my work. That's been a big thing in our household. My husband is my very able assistant, installing exhibitions and things like that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the launch and seeing all the work myself. You look at it differently once it's been exhibited. So yeah, I'm quite excited to to see how it all looks in the space.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, and it'll be somewhat of a transformation as well, because, as you say, currently it's all sat being frozen, wrapped up in things, and then out it'll come, and things look differently from being kind of in a box to being out on the wall and organised with your panels and your information. So I think that's going to be really, really exciting.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's because this has sort of been the biggest solo show that I've done so far. I had a solo show in 2016, but it was a sort of smaller space. And yeah, I think for me, this has been, because it's a really sort of autobiographical piece as well as as sort of responding to the museum. Yeah, it's quite a sort of powerful impact, and obviously I'm very familiar with the work, but it's either been pinned to a notice board on a heap on my desk, or down at the framers. So yeah, to sort of see it all out in the room is my sort of favourite part of it.
Quite a high point. Yeah, good one. And when you look on Hayley's website, you'll notice that she has quite a lot of exhibition history. You can see where the different places where she's been exhibiting around West Yorkshire area as well in particular. So yeah, I think that's just really exciting to have a museum exhibition all to yourself. Well done.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I have to say though, this year's been good because I had my first international exhibition for another project. This year, some work that I created inside a caravan for a project called the Grief Series. That travelled around the UK, so it went down to the south coast, up to the Isle of Arran, and then across to Hamburg. So I was quite excited that I had some work in Hamburg. That was just a brilliant sort of thing to know that a different audience was going to see my work, because I'm really excited about when different people get to see the work that I do, and to have it as part of a bigger project was really great as well.
And I think it broadens your own. We were talking before about your kind of personal network of friends and colleagues and kind of people who know your work, and it just, wherever you go, you just want to broaden your network and your reach, don't you? And you never know who knows somebody else who can help you or recommend you.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the things I found when it's nearly 6 years since I went freelance as well, you spend a lot of time, as you'll know, just sort of working on your own and sort of sitting in your pajamas in your studio. It's not as super glamorous as the programme What Do Artists Do All Day. I think if they came to film me, they would see a lot of cups of tea and a lot of just me on my own talking to myself, going, does this look all right? Oh, should I unpick that stitch? There's familiar things that we all know. So yeah, to sort of like work collaboratively with other people like I have on the Grief Series, and to sort of spend those research trips at the museum and to work on projects. So I was lucky enough this year, I did some teaching for Ruth Singer, who's been a mentor to me. And yeah, I got to go out into the community in Burnley near Gawthorpe Hall and teach some workshops. So yeah, I think it's really the sort of meeting new people and those connections that actually really sort of enriches what I do and makes my job even more amazing than just getting to sit and embroider things all day.
Yeah, no, that's a really, really key point. And I think anybody who's trying to get themselves established, or even if somebody's been established for years, you can't ever underestimate the power of personal connections in whatever you do.
Yeah, and I think, I'm lucky, we always all talk about the personal connections that textiles have with people. So I think I always immediately there's a great sort of power when you look at textiles. I went to the Festival of Quilts this year, and just the connections that you have with the pieces of fabric that people have used and the stories behind them. So yeah, I think just a lot of what I do is sort of connections with materials and with other people and places.
Yeah. Now that kind of links in first how you first got interested in embroidery and textile. It's obviously something that, as you said, something you learned as a child.
Apart from naughtily unpicking things to see how they were made.
Oh, that's hilarious though.
Oh yeah, I used to get in so much trouble. No, I was really lucky. I was adopted by my paternal grandparents when I was about 2, and they were just amazing sort of people. They were both born in their 20s, and things that they did, that sort of like, I always say that inherent need to make things.
Yes.
Because that's what people did. So my granddad did woodwork and metalwork and loads of different things like that. So when my grandma was at work, I would be in the garage with him and sort of build things out of wood and make jewellery out of copper wire. And then my grandma was an avid knitter.
Yeah.
She did sewing that was more sort of purposeful, you know, sort of like mending things, hemming things, sewing up jumpers. But there was always a needle and thread around. I could sew before I went to school because I just sort of used to sit. I can remember sitting on the floor in front of my grandma's chair, just learning sort of some different stitches. And she had a little sort of green anchor stitch glossary book.
Yes.
Stained. I think loads of people remember that book. A few of my students that I teach regularly have them. And I just would sit and I'd just be fascinated by what I could do with fabric and thread. And yeah, that led to going, I wonder how this cushion's made. How do you make trousers?
Yeah.
So obviously the internet wasn't a thing.
No.
You know, I would start taking them apart. I think my grandma's biggest disappointment was that I was really bad at hand knitting. So bad. Most of the things were mainly holes. So my Cindy's wore quite a lot of holey scarves and had quite a lot of sort of threadbare blankets. But and I think because there were so many people around me who were creative, one of my grandma's sisters, we went to their house and she had it was a huge canvas that she'd done, and it was an appliqued picture of the village fete. And it was incredible. And I'd never seen anything like that. So I just went, I wonder if I could make something like that. And yeah, I just sort of started to experiment and always pick up bits of fabric and just see where it took me. So it's a bit of a lifelong obsession with textiles. I can't imagine working with anything else.
Yeah. So, you know, obviously in terms of inspirations, then you were in a very creative environment, which in itself is, you know, very inspiring. So do you have any other kind of major inspirations other than kind of family members and also currently, Hayley?
Yeah, I mean, I've sort of, like I say, I mentioned before, Ruth Singer's been a mentor for me. I love this sort of way that she uses textiles as a personal narrative, sharing those, you know, those stories about herself, telling stories about other people. That's something that I've been really inspired by. And I suppose among the first people who got me into, we say, textile art, when I was doing my degree, which feels like a very long time ago, I would go to the Knitting and Stitching show in Harrogate, and I would see the work by Jambini and Jean Littlejohn, and just, that's amazing. I wonder if I could do that. And the first time I met them, they gave me a book. There one Conversations with Constance about Constance Howard. And yeah, I would just sort of read about, you know, the way embroidery had sort of formed into an art form and be so inspired by that. Because I've spent such a long time in places like National Trust properties, stately homes, just the historical textiles as well, looking at those and going, they're amazing, you know, they're all done by hand. All those beautiful things have just sort of led me to think, great, embroidery is what's for me. So, and I have a lot of friends who work within textiles. My amazingly talented friend Lee Bowser is a constant inspiration. She does these amazing pet portraits and things, all free machine embroidery. So every time I look at her Instagram feed, I think we all do it. We all have people's Instagram feeds that we look at and go, oh, that's amazing. My work looks terrible. And it's what I tell my students as well. Don't look at the person next to you because you'll hate what you've done. And they went, oh, do you feel like that? And I was like, every time you look at somebody else's Instagram feed. But yeah, I think it's just been great to surround myself with so many creative friends as well. They're a constant inspiration, whether it's music or textiles or printmaking.
And I think having that range of friends in real life is really, really handy. It says me who, you know, are my in real life friends kind of look at me and think, what are you doing? Podcasting? What? Online marketing? What, you know, all my kind of friends are into that are all virtual friends, you know. I've never actually met before, but I spend ages chatting to them and doing Zoom things and all the rest of it. But it is, again, back to that support. It's so important to have that network of people around you. And I think as you get older, you appreciate it more and more and more, as well as to how very important. It does keep yourself sane. You've mentioned about working on projects with mental health, and we've had other guests as well, highlighting the importance of creativity and mental health and those networks of people. And it is just so powerfully true.
Yeah, I think it is. It is one of the things I always say that just it helps to keep me grounded, having those other people around and having those places that I can go to sort of find inspiration. And yeah, creativity is so important for everybody, even if you don't think you're any good at it. Even if, I've got a friend who does lots of colouring books and things like that. And I said, that's your creativity.
Yes.
I said, no one else is going to do what you do. So yeah, I think creativity is certainly been beneficial for my well-being over the years.
Definitely. And so in terms of favourite techniques, Hayley, do you have any particular favourites or kind of styles? And if so, why do you like them so much? Why do you come back to them?
So I used to do everything completely by hand.
Yeah.
And I've always loved hand stitch. A lot of my students, when I'm teaching hand embroidery, will say to me, what's your favourite stitch? So my favourite stitch is backstitch.
Yes, I love backstitch.
Some people are really disappointed when I say that, like I should say something really flamboyant. I was like, backstitch is amazing.
I just do it all the time. It just comes out. I just start, oh God, I've done backstitch again. Oh, never mind.
It's my default setting. I think, like when a Word document opens and it's a default whenever I pick up a needle and thread and an embroidery hoop, the default stitch that comes out
comes is backstitch, yeah.
But it's amazing because you can make it really decorative. So you can do like laced backstitch. It's really sort of sturdy as well. And yeah, I absolutely love that. But for anyone who's done a master's, I would say there's always that bit whenever you do anything like a degree or a master's or anything, and you get that bit whenever you're studying where you've got your head and your hands on your desk crying a little bit.
Yeah.
I was doing a master's and I was doing everything by hand, and I was just getting sort of hitting that wall and thinking, I'm not happy with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I was lucky enough, because I did my MA in textiles at Manchester School of Art, and I was lucky enough to be taught by Melanie Miller, and she was an amazing tutor, and she just looked and went, you need to change things. And for me, that change was discovering digital embroidery.
Right.
The greatest people at Manchester School of Art for me were the embroidery technicians, because they knew everything about everything. They were so fantastic because they could make clothes. They knew how all the machines worked. So we had like fantastic things like a Cornelli chain stitch machine. Obviously all the sort of things like the industrial sewing machines for the fashion students, and then down to the Bernina 1008, that sort of workhorse that loads of us have.
Yeah.
And I got an induction to use digital embroidery, and it was a bit terrifying because they have a multi-head machine, the sort that does like your school jumpers and stuff like that.
Oh, right, yes.
I started working with digital embroidery, and it was such a change because I'd usually, it's just me sitting in a chair with an embroidery hoop and a box of threads, and it was just completely the opposite. So I would sit with a computer and translate my designs, drawings, photographs, things like that, into these digital stitches. And I mean, the first thing I did was terrible. It was really bad. And I think sort of underlined that I'd not had a lot of computer experience aside from social media and email and things like that. But I just sort of started to develop this amazing sort of way of working with it. And the software that I use 6D software, which is a FAF product, and it thinks it's very clever. Like most technology things, they think they're really clever, but actually you can sort of dupe it into doing things that you want by confusing it.
Yes.
Because it doesn't know what else to do. So things like there's a self-portrait, which is one of the first things I did that I've never exhibited, that'll be included in my Archive and Other Stories exhibition.
Yeah.
And yeah, I basically did a really grainy image of myself, and the software doesn't know what to do, so it just joins it all up and creates amazing lines. And since then I've been working with digital embroidery, but also I think it's always either a starting point or a finishing point. I still love hand embroidery, doing my backstitch on things, adding beaded details, sort of a lot of, cutting things up, piecing them together. But yeah, I think that's been sort of a big change for me.
Yeah.
And when you go to the shows, I don't know if you've ever seen any of the embroidery machines in action.
Some of them I tend to kind of whiz past so I don't get tempted. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, they are very tempting, and also you can leave them, but you don't, because you just watch them.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have said, like, oh, well, it's cheating, isn't it? And I said, well, I did say to one lady, I said, well, technically, washing your clothes in a washing machine is cheating.
That's a very good analogy, yes.
Because you should be down at the river, bashing
down to that stream, yes.
But I've just always just sort of integrated it into what I normally do. So, I would digitally embroider some pieces of fabric and cut them up, because pin cushions, you'll see them in my exhibition and on my website. Pin cushions have become a little bit of a thing for me. I think it's because it's the first thing I learned how to make when I did English patchwork.
Ah, right.
I was running a WI in Leeds City Centre called Buns and Roses, and they wanted to do patchwork. And they said, you don't work full time. You could learn how to do patchwork and teach us. So I went, my husband's grandma runs a quilting group over in Manchester. And I went there and I got taught how to make a hexagon pin cushion, where you make the two flowers.
Yes.
And yeah. And I think that was the start of a wonderful obsession with pin cushions as well. So you'll find that I can turn many things into a pin cushion.
Into a pin cushion, yes. Now, well, I have when I was having a look through your website, and so I thought, oh, pin cushions keep popping up here. So that's clearly a bit of an obsession going on with pin cushions, I have to say. But yeah.
Yes. They are. I wrote a blog entry about them. Yeah. All my friends have them. There's one in the Grief Series project in the caravan that we did. I've got a drawer dedicated to the memory of my grandma, and that has a pin cushion in it. Right. So yeah, they're a very big sort of part of my making, and actually the thing I still make for fun. When you have a job that's also your hobby, you have sort of, so I have work sewing and fun sewing.
Right, so the pin cushions come under the fun sewing side of things.
They do, yeah. They sneak into work because you can't escape. Everything I do is sort of connected. But yeah, they're definitely still a fun thing for me. So I shall have to make you a pin cushion and send it to you.
Do a Stitchery Stories well. That'd be lovely. I was just going to go back to the digital embroidery. So you're using the software from these fancy machines. You're kind of, are you scanning in? Do you scan things in as well? Because we're not really talked about digital embroidery at all, I don't think, on this show. Kind of wanted to just embroider that a bit, really.
Yeah, so you can do different things with the software. So yeah, it's called 6D,
right?
And it's 6D. And it's a FAF product. And so, yeah, you can sort of open it. And as when you open anything like Photoshop, you can scan in images, or you can upload an existing image.
Yeah.
So a photograph, things like that. And yeah, there's different sort of functions to it. So there's something that I use called Portrait Stitch, which in the basic terms is basically you can scan in a family photograph, and the machine will create a digital file based on it. It does everything for you. It picks the colours. So you can select the type of thread that you want to use, the sort of thread family. So I use a lot of Madeira rayon.
They're lovely,
because they're just a brilliant sort of range of colours. And the sort of nearest supplier to me, Barn Yarns out in Ripon, does a great range of them. But yeah, what happens is, though, because it selects all the colours, so you might scan in an image and it could be 30 colours, but what happens is you can start taking those layers apart almost. If you thought about it as, sort of looking at different layers of colour, so you can sort of separate those and create quite sort of lacy, ghost-like images, which is just really exciting. So I've got a piece of work in my exhibition, which is a bit of sort of 50% of people love it and 50% of people creepy, because I did a lot of work inspired by a Victorian doll in the museum.
Right, yeah.
So I've just got a fragment that's a piece of a doll's face.
Right.
One of my friends says that I've given her nightmares forever. But it, so it sort of allows me to separate things. And what it's done for me that doing my work by hand could never do is it's given me a sense of colour. Everything I did before was quite monochrome.
Right.
Just because that was sort of my default setting that I would go to. You know, I work with a lot of calico, like a lot of us do, because it's a quite easily available material.
Yes.
And I would just never pick. I think most things I did were sort of natural coloured, black, white, and red. And when I started using digital software, I was like, the first 12 colours that the software picks, because the machine I was using had 12 needles, I was like, that'll be my colour palette.
Yeah.
So, and they're colours that I still use now in my work. And it's given me that sense of sort of knowing about how to work with colour, and it's something I can translate into my hand embroidery and hand embellishments as well. So it's an interesting process. If you're ever at any of the shows, or even the biggest shops that sell the embroidery machines, have a go at it, have a look, because I think a lot of people are sort of scared of technology. And
yeah, I think that's a good point. And the other thing is, you do see them at the shows churning out another picture of Dumbo or, Pokemon or something, and you just think, hang on a minute, yeah. That's not what I want to do. And so you think, no, that's all they do, kind of thing. But so it's been really interesting, you giving us 5 minutes there on the other things you can do apart from embroidering a Dumbo or a Pokemon for your kids' jeans or whatever, or a cushion flower or something. So yeah, that.
Yes, or monogramming towels. People keep, but that seems to be a big thing, that when you hear it, sort of on the TV shows that sell stuff, this is monogram towels for people. And I just thought, who has a friend they hate so much?
I want to put some damn embroidery on a towel for them.
Going to that, my friend's getting married in October, and I'm very tempted, because she keeps laughing when I say that. I'm very tempted to monogram a towel for her.
Oh dear.
But yeah, I think that is the sort of image of it. But yeah, I mean, your own photographs, your own drawings, you can turn those into brilliant sort of things. And somebody said to me once, they said I think I could sort of really work with this. And I said, it really helps me, because I think fundamentally I try to do a lot of free machine embroidery, and I'm just not very good at it.
Yeah.
No matter how many years I do it, I never seem to get better. So, that's sort of given me a way to do the free machine embroidery parts of my work, and then
without being frustrated about your kind of what you produce. Yeah, I think that's a really good way of thinking about things. So, Hayley, given all of that, you've obviously a wide range of other exhibitions and so on, but what would you say has been the high point of your textile art and embroidery journey so far?
I have to say, I think it is my upcoming exhibition in Whitby, because it's been such a big sort of part of my life. And I think because the museum's played such a huge part in my life as well, getting that chance to open up their collection to new audiences and look at things in a different way, because I did a similar project with the Thackeray Medical Museum in Leeds.
Right, yes.
I don't know if you visited
Not
there.
For a long time, no, but it's really interesting. Fascinating museum is the Thackeray.
It is, yeah. And again, that sort of divides people, because some people think it's just a bit sort of upsetting and other people find it fascinating. But I did a similar project with the Thackeray Medical Museum, and I got to look through, basically they have an object store with about 79,000 objects in. They gave me a bit of an introduction to, here are some things, wear gloves, don't drop things, in the basic thing. No, but they're an amazing team. They gave me this intro to this object store, and then I just got to be in there researching. Which was amazing. And I got to produce some work based on a projector for mass X-ray from the 1950s from TB screening. And I just basically produced lots and lots of embroidered X-rays, which was just a fantastic thing to be involved in. And I was the only visual artist involved in the exhibition as well. The other two pieces were brilliant audio pieces. But I basically got this huge wall, and I got to fill it. So it had things like actual sets of lungs that were 3D, different sort of and different embroidered X-rays. And that was definitely a sort of high point of my practice so far as well. Just working in a fantastic space with an unusual subject matter. I quite like using unusual subject matter.
I was just going to say that, as much as we all love flowers and birds and things, it can be a challenge to deliver work and thoughts and ideas as you say, on unusual subjects, and to get that opportunity to work with something like the Thackeray is just, I can see that being a really good high point and quite an unusual one as well.
Yeah, I think it is. And I got approached at the end of last year to write an article for, Be Creative with Workbox, their magazine. And it was the second time they'd approached me to write for them. Just because they'd come across my work through social media. And a brilliant thing. I got asked, they said, we've seen all your work with narwhals that you've been doing. Can you write as an article about embroidering narwhals? And I think if you told me when I was doing my degree, number one, we didn't have social media. And number two, that somebody would say to me, hey, write an article about narwhals. I'd have gone, that's amazing.
It is, though. So, and it's as I keep saying, like a damn scratched record. Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought that somebody would be wanting you to do an article? This is your job. Who'd have thought if somebody wanted you to write an article about embroidering narwhals? Well, nobody would ever think that, would they? It's just endless possibilities. And I think that's what keeps us all so interested and not obsessed, but obsessed and just fascinated endlessly with the opportunities that this art method, this medium provides to us.
No, it's such a fantastic sort of thing. And, I'm aware that I'm really lucky because, for my job, I get to embroider things and teach people how to embroider things as well. And it's been a fantastic sort of, and it's a roller coaster. Self-employment freelance life is the best roller coaster you'll ever go on. And there are days, I've never been scared to admit, there are days where I'm sitting in my studio looking like I haven't slept for a fortnight and I don't know what I'm doing or who I am anymore. And there are days that are, just incredibly exciting and rewarding, and I don't really take holidays because I love what I do. And after 2 days of not doing anything, I'm just there going,
did you start twitching?
I've sat down now, I'll go make something.
Fantastic. Now, obviously the exhibitions that you've been working on take a lot of planning, and especially when things seem so far away. So we've got that saying about beware of long distant elephants. So those items that seem so far away, they creep up on you, and suddenly, whack, there they are, they're looming large. So how do you kind of manage your distant elephants, your planning, keep your creativity going, and kind of manage all the various projects that you've got on the go? I have to say, I think in my former life I was an administrator in offices in the financial services industry. And I've always been sort of quite a planner, and I used to have I've taken elements from that. So we always had strict deadlines to work with when you work in finance. And I'm really good at sort of just that idea of like actually thinking quite logically. My husband says I'm a bit of an anomaly because I'm a very well organised, very methodical person, but creative. And I have to say, I'm a big fan of the notice board. Post-it notes form a huge part of my life. I think at one point we counted, I had 37 different kinds of post-it note. I always tend to, whenever I've got a project going on, for me, it sort of helps me to think, what am I going to need to do for this? One of the best tips I got is a friend who works in gallery and museum world who does marketing for them. And he emailed me a copy of just this little thing that he'd done, and it's a social media plan. And it just tells you, sort of what you can do. So I sort of do things like little social media plans. I've got my whiteboard on the go and I'm constantly scrolling things on it. And then 2 days later, I don't know what they mean, but I drew a little picture of something. I've always sort of got little lists on the go of things that I need to do so that I know when things get overwhelming, I can sort of go. And I've still got a paper diary. I use my phone because my husband says I'm difficult to keep track of. So he likes to have a copy that he can see and go, oh, this is where she is this week. I've got two. Paper diary, you can't beat it.
You really can't. And, it sort of, that helps me with my stationery addiction. And when stationery is a legitimate business expense, you can really go to town with it. So, I'm just always there with my lists and things. And people say that I never sleep. So that's how I get a lot done. I do sleep, just not a lot.
Brilliant. And so therefore, just as we wrap up, we're hurtling towards our time here. As I say every week, I could talk with you for hours. So future plans then, with all your post-it notes and your paper diary and all the rest of it. So what kind of plans and projects have you got that you'd just like to give us a bit of an insight and share with us today, Hayley?
Yeah, so I have got another exhibition this year because I thought to myself, what's better than one solo exhibition? Two, and I don't need to sleep or eat or do anything else. So no, I'm really excited that I'm going to be included in the 2018 Love Arts Leeds Festival, which is a raising awareness and a celebration of the amazing creativity that's out there, and also sort of promoting conversations about mental health and well-being. Brilliant. So I've got an exhibition called Girls Who Eat Their Feelings, which is about my struggles with emotional overeating. Right. So in 2017, I recorded every single thing that I ate and drank, and also my mental health and physical health during that time. So I have created lots of different little graphs of things. So there's things like how many cups of tea I drank in 2017. It's into the thousands, and it's all those little things. And that's going to be exhibited in Leeds Central Library. So that launches on the 5th of October. So yeah, I've got a whole exhibition to make before then. I think I've got about 4 pieces. So we shall see how that goes. But I'm always quite good. I like a tight deadline. It gives me that impetus
to get on with it.
To sort of to get on with things. I'm not good with leisurely. I like a very sort of focused, sort of like, this is what I have to do. And yeah, that ties in because I've been working on a project with an Engaging Libraries project with Leeds Libraries called Body, Image and Mind. Nice. So doing a bit of teaching and just, again, promoting those conversations around mental health and well-being, but using creativity as a way to express that. And so, yeah, we did a lot of lovely stitching workshops in the library, and it's such a great resource because they have lots of books and I don't have to carry them with me. I can just inspire people. And yeah, we have a dedicated art library at Leeds Central Library, which is an amazing
Brilliant.
space.
Yeah, I really love that. Right, Hayley, thank you so much for sharing your Stitchery story with us today. Seriously, we could talk for another 3 hours, I'm sure. But it's been absolutely fascinating finding out more about you and your art and the way in which you're out there doing these exhibitions, working with the museums, being so involved with the libraries. I think it's absolutely fantastic. So remember, everybody, you can find out more about Hayley on her website, which is hayleymills-styles.com. Her exhibition, Archive and Other Stories, is at Whitby Museum starting from Saturday the 15th of September. And you can also get yourselves along to Leeds Central Library on the 5th of October for Girls Who Eat Their Feelings. So you are one very busy lady.
I am indeed. Thank you so much, Sue. It's been wonderful.
It's been absolutely fab. Thank you very much, Hayley. Cheers.
Bye.
If you liked this episode and want to hear more, then please join the Stitchery Stories fan club so you can get an email when a new episode is released. It's a quick and easy way of listening and of keeping up with any news and offers from our lovely guests. Please visit stitcherystories.com to join the fan club. Of course, if you have iTunes, then subscribe there to automatically get new episodes. And why not leave us a review and rating whilst you are there? So that is the end of our Stitchery story for today. So keep stitching, keep smiling, and keep creating your very own Stitchery stories.